Most people don't know who they are. They only know who they have learned to pretend to be. There is a version of you that only exists in silence and sunlight, and that's the version that is actually shaping your life and your future. If you really want to understand who you're becoming, ask yourself this: who are you when no one is watching? Not the curated version that you show online, not the version that is shaped by expectations or habits, but the one that surfaces quietly, almost secretly, when the world isn't looking. We all perform certain versions of ourselves because we are habituated to it, because it feels safer, easier, and more acceptable. But there is always a more honest self underneath, one that speaks softly and waits patiently to be acknowledged. And that self is the one that is shaping your life and your future far more than the version that you think is doing the work. The philosopher Soren Kierkegaard once said that the most common form of despair is not being who you are. And the older I get, and the more I look back at my life, the more I understand how easy it is for any of us to get entangled with this, and how quiet that despair can be. It is a subtle, almost invisible kind of pain that comes from drifting away from yourself. And often, this happens from you ignoring your own truth for too long. You bend, you shrink, you smooth your edges until you barely recognize what's left at the center. But also, returning to yourself doesn't require anything dramatic or major. It literally begins with noticing the discomfort of living out of alignment, outside of your potential, and realizing that you deserve a life that feels like home every single minute. What I have learned is that becoming your true self is rarely about reinvention. It's always about return. Return to instincts, to desires, to the voice inside you that has been trying to speak all along. Before the noise, before the comparisons, before the pressure to be impressive or perfect, or to perform and present yourself in a particular way, there was a version of you that was complete. And that version is still there, just quieter, covered up by the layers that you had to put on it to survive or to be understood. And all of us do this to an extent. That is what society in general conditions people to do. And it also isn't about suddenly changing your job or the city where you live or anything drastic. I mean, if these decisions come from an authentic knowing, then yes. But if you are looking at these acts as steps or as ways to become a different version of you, they will only add to the disappointment and the stress. It can be frightening to meet the truest parts of yourself, your deepest desires, your real longings, your unfiltered thoughts. It could be uncomfortable to sit with all these in the beginning when you start experimenting with your silence and what it unfolds for you. It reveals the things you have learned to hide, but it also carries your freedom. Asking yourself what you actually want without thinking about repercussions or about anyone else's expectations can feel almost rebellious, though it should actually be the most noble way of being for everyone. And yet it is the only way to build a life that feels real. So let the silence, let the sunlight expose the places of you that you have kept hidden. Let yourself be seen, especially by you. Life is not something to be endured. It is to be felt, to be lived, to be laughed with, to be cried with. Because healing doesn't always shout. It was, of course, a recovery of sorts, of developing an inner immunity to external circumstances that demand how you define yourself. Allow the silence to return to your body, the warmth to return to your skin, even if no one sees it at first. Remember that the person you want to become isn't someone new. It's just a clearer, lighter, truer version of yourself. So ask yourself this, not with force, but with honesty. not with pressure, but with awareness. Who am I when no one is watching? And when you start answering this, you will start living your life in ways you had never imagined you could.